The 6th of April, 1941. As waves of Luftwaffe bombers pound Belgrade into rubble, Nazi Germany launches a coordinated invasion in the Balkans. Under the code name Operation Marita, German forces cross into Greece, driven by Adolf Hitler's determination to secure the southern flank of his planned war against the Soviet Union and to dominate vital supply routes in southeastern Europe. Within weeks, the German 12th Army, supported by Italian and Bulgarian allies, overwhelms Greek defenses and occupies the country. Yet surrender does not bring peace. Across occupied Greece, resistance fighters continue to challenge German control, and the response is merciless. Villages are burned, hostages are taken, and entire communities are punished for acts they did not commit. On the island of Crete, this policy of collective terror reaches one of its most violent expressions. In the Amari Valley, beneath the slopes of Mount Kedros, German troops encircle 9 remote villages, gather civilians under armed guard, and carry out mass executions of 164 men in a single day in August 1944, in what will become known as the Holocaust of Kedros. However, this atrocity will not remain unpunished, and the main perpetrators will pay for their crimes. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. The early stages of the war saw rapid German advances across Europe, with the fall of Poland, the invasion of France, and the evacuation of British forces from Dunkirk in 1940. Following the successful campaign in France, Adolf Hitler set his sights on the Soviet Union. However, before he could launch Operation Barbarossa, the code name for the invasion of the Soviet Union, he sought to secure Germany's southern flank and protect vital supply routes. On the 6th of April, 1941, Germany invaded Greece with rapid and coordinated assaults. The German 12th Army, supported by Italian and Bulgarian allies, quickly overwhelmed Greek and British Commonwealth forces. The city of Thessaloniki fell early, and by the 27th of April 1941, Athens, the Greek capital, was occupied. Mainland Greece was under Axis control. Greek and Allied forces retreated to the southern island of Crete. The conquest of the island began in May 1941 with a battle code named Operation Mercury, the first major airborne invasion in military history, and the first time the Allies made significant use of intelligence from decrypted German messages from the Enigma machine. Despite fierce resistance from Allied troops and local Cretans, the superior firepower and tactics of 22,000 German paratroopers secured the island. Occupation, however, did not bring submission. As the war progressed, resistance movements expanded across Greece. Partisans carried out sabotage, ambushes, and intelligence operations in support of the Allies. In response, German occupation authorities increasingly relied on terror to suppress civilian support for resistance activity. Generalmajor Friedrich-Wilhelm Müller became the central figure behind this policy on Crete. As the senior German military commander on the island, he enforced a policy of collective punishment against civilians. Under his orders, villages were destroyed and hostages executed, most notably during the Vianos massacres in September 1943 and the destruction of the village of Anoia in August 1944. By late summer 1944, a clear pattern of reprisals had been established. One area, however, had remained largely untouched. South of the city of Rethymno, between the slopes of Siloritis and Mount Kedros, lay the Amari Valley. The Amari Basin rose 500 to 600 meters above sea level in the southeastern part of the Rethymno region. In contrast to the barren mountain peaks surrounding it, the valley was fertile and well-watered. Villages clustered along its floor, sustained by olive groves, fruit trees, and small farms. During the occupation, its remoteness had shielded it from earlier large-scale German reprisals. That isolation also made Amari a refuge. Allied soldiers passed through the valley after the fall of Crete while attempting to reach the south coast and escape to Egypt. Others hid nearby with the help of local residents. Food, shelter, and equipment were quietly provided to partisan groups. British Special Operations executive personnel later referred to the area as Lotus Land, a place of beauty and resistance hidden away from the occupiers' view. By late 1944, it was clear that Germany would lose the war. German occupation forces in Crete had begun planning their withdrawal toward the city of Chania, where they would remain until surrendering on the 9th of May, 1945. It was under these conditions that Friedrich-Wilhelm Müller, by then promoted to General der Infanterie, ordered a final brutal reprisal to intimidate the population and deter attacks during the withdrawal. The route of this retreat exposed the flank of German forces withdrawing from the city of Iraklio, a major administrative and logistical center on the island's north coast. The Amari Valley, long known for its support of the resistance, lay directly along this vulnerable axis. At dawn on the 22nd of August, 1944, several battalions of German infantry from the 22nd Infantry Division entered the Amari Valley in silence, advancing along mountain paths and dirt roads. Without alerting the inhabitants, they surrounded the western side of the basin, sealing off escape routes before sunrise. By the time residents realized what was happening, armed German soldiers were already moving through village streets, knocking on doors, and ordering civilians outside at gunpoint. The surrounded Kedros villages were Yerakari, Urguthi, Kardaki, Vrises, Zmiles, Drias, Anomeros, and Hordaki. The nearby village of Kria Vrisi was also surrounded. In each of the 9 villages, the operation followed the same pattern. Civilians were gathered under armed guard in central areas. Identity checks were carried out. Men were separated from women, children, and the elderly. Those selected for execution were set aside. Women were ordered to return to their homes and collect valuables, and told they were preparing for a long journey. It was deliberate deception, designed to facilitate looting. Women, children, and the elderly were then driven out of the villages. Men who were not immediately executed were forced to march toward Rethymno, where they were imprisoned in the Fortezza fortress for several weeks. Once the villages were emptied, firing squads were assembled. Executions were carried out in groups. Victims were led to fields, courtyards, or village houses and shot at close range. In several cases, the killings took place inside homes, which were then packed with explosives and blown apart, burying the dead beneath rubble. When the shooting ended, the bodies were doused with petrol and set on fire. Smoke rose from multiple villages at once, drifting across the valley into the surrounding mountains. The violence continued for days. German troops systematically looted abandoned homes, confiscated crops and livestock, and destroyed what could not be taken. Houses were burnt or blown up with dynamite, echoing earlier acts of destruction carried out elsewhere on the island. Stolen goods were gathered at a former school in the valley and transported by truck to Rethymno. Local resistance fighters could do nothing but watch. From hiding places on the slopes of Silorithis, the ancient Mount Ida, they observed the valley burn. Yorgos Psychodakis, a Cretan resistance fighter and later chronicler of the occupation, wrote that smoke could be seen rising from the villages for more than a week. The Amari Valley, once a place of refuge and quiet resistance, had been transformed into a landscape of ruins and mass graves. In total, 164 civilians were killed. The Holocaust of Kedros was a calculated act of terror, ordered at the highest level of German command on Crete, carried out at a moment when defeat was already inevitable. The destruction of the Kedros villages was a deliberate act of preemptive terror carried out during the final phase of the German occupation of Crete. The massacre was intended to break civilian support for resistance activity through fear, not to respond to a specific military engagement. It was a warning delivered in blood, aimed at discouraging attacks during the retreat and demonstrating that defiance would be met with total destruction. After the war ended in May 1945, responsibility for these crimes was finally imposed. General der Infanterie Friedrich-Wilhelm Müller was captured by the Red Army in East Prussia and later extradited to Greece. He was tried in Athens alongside Generalleutnant Bruno Breuer, another senior German commander on Crete, for atrocities committed during the occupation. Both men were convicted of war crimes, sentenced to death on the 9th of December 1946, and executed by firing squad on the 20th of May 1947, the anniversary of the Axis invasion of Crete. The 22nd Infantry Division, the unit that carried out the massacre, withdrew from Crete in autumn 1944 and was redeployed to the mainland Balkans. There, it spent the final months of the war conducting further anti-partisan operations in Macedonia, Serbia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. Renamed the 22nd Volksgrenadier Division in March 1945, it continued retreating northward and ultimately surrendered to Yugoslav forces in Slovenia in May 1945, by which time it had been shattered by combat, attrition, and mass capture, with thousands of its members killed, wounded, or taken prisoner. During World War II, approximately 350,000 Greeks lost their lives, and over 60,000 Greek Jews were murdered in Nazi concentration camps. Today, the destruction of the Kedros villages is commemorated annually, with memorial events held in rotation among the affected communities, ensuring that the victims, not the perpetrators, remain at the center of history.
Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.